what's unique about CPDs is that they are a mix of educational and interesting and memorable presentations. So you've only got people for an hour generally, including questions, so you've got to get your message over very quick. What particularly interests me about them is that it's getting to grips with an organisation, from a personal point of view, getting to grips with their company very quickly and their products, and refining their message in an incredibly short time down to what needs to be delivered to the audience. And we find that an awful lot of the clients that we start working with, they know they've got a lot to say, but they've not refined the message. And that's what really I find interesting, as well as just from a purely personal point of view, really understanding a wide range of technical products. Well, the stakeholders that we've got, I mean, as always with everything we do in Eyeful, it doesn't matter whether it's CPDs or corporate presentations, the audience is the first thought. But the audience in CPDs can be very varied and mixed within any one meeting, because you can have anything from the most senior partner through to the most junior member of staff. The audience are primarily there to get their CPD points from the awarding body. And cynics might say they're there to get lunch as well, but that's primarily there. So they've got to get something which they can get their points from the awarding body, but they've also got to feel that, having given up what is generally a lunchtime, that they're getting something valuable as a result of it. So say that they want to return from it. So that's really what the audience is looking for out of this. But it's the spread of that, and we can create the CPDs so that the presenter has the flexibility to shift it to a higher level if they're the more senior people, or a lower level if they're not, and there's certain techniques we use to enable that to happen. Well, on the side you've got the awarding body. Now, the awarding body sets the standards for the CPD, so it mustn't be too strong a push on the product, in fact not strong at all. It's got to be generalist as far as they're concerned, and it's got to meet their educational requirements. That is consistent across all of the CPDs, so we always know what the rules are there, and those rules are to be followed because they set the standard for the sector, and the awarding body wants to make sure that they are increasing the professional standards of the individuals in the sector. So we can't move too far away from that either. That would be morally wrong. And then of course you've got the people who are paying for this, which is the manufacturer or supplier, because they're not always the manufacturers, they're sometimes distributors of product. Fundamentally, yeah, they want to educate people, but not as much as they want to sell to them. But they can't be a sales pitch, otherwise the audience gets fed up. So what they must do is support the generalist nature of it. They must support the awarding body and hope that the presentation is interesting enough and engaging enough that the specifiers will make contact with them when they have a requirement a few months maybe into the future. And that's how the stakeholders, it's a very strange stakeholder approach which you wouldn't see in most presentations. I would say that is the single most difficult thing to have an answer to. I, in 5 years of doing this, haven't found anybody who can measure it. You can measure it probably anecdotally, but you're expecting somebody to pick up the phone or drop you an email in a few months' time, and how you trace that back to the CPD is very difficult. You can measure the audience reaction at the time and the confidence of the salespeople, but actually ROI on it, very difficult. But let me make a point another way. If you want to get in front of these audiences, then you've got to do a CPD. Because the architects particularly, but a lot of specifiers, so it could be other specifiers within, say, local government, that sort of thing, are incredibly reluctant to be on the receiving end of sales presentations. I have no idea why, but they don't like it. Some companies do achieve little bits of it, but on a consistent basis, if you want to get in front of the specifying audience, then you do a CPD. It's the rules of the game. Been involved in Prezi, been involved in Keynote, and both on Mac and on iPad. Also push when I run training sessions for people on how to actually deliver the CPD, very much push them into also taking samples and weaving that into the presentation as well, so that you're using all the senses with the samples being passed around as you're talking about them. So yeah, those are some of the other techniques, and also making sure that you've got a link where you can on the CPD between the CPD content and maybe leave behinds like data sheets and brochures and those sorts of things. So it's the whole range of things. Tend not to get much into stuff that we would do in corporates, like whiteboarding and that sort of thing.